Okay, I'm with Darren Rowse, and tell me, you are a pro blogger on Twitter. Tell me a little bit about how you got started. Tell me a little bit about how you got started doing that.
Yeah, sure. So it was in 2002, November, and a friend sent me a link one day, and I usually don't follow links that friends send me because you never know quite where you end up. But this link, he came from a good friend, and for some reason I followed it, and I ended up on a blog. And it was a blog written on topics that I was interested in, and I didn't know too many local people who were interested in those sorts of topics. And so I was immediately fascinated by this medium that enabled this guy on the other side of the world to communicate really clearly to me through this internet. And also he gave him a voice, I guess, but also gave him the ability to build a community around him and that voice. And so he had this community learning together and adding to the conversation, and it just fascinated me what he was doing. And so that day I started my own first blog on a blogspot blog. It was very simple, it was terribly designed, and yeah, that's how I got started. I guess 9 years later, it's become a full-time job, and by no means was it ever going to be that. It was just going to be a hobby, and I honestly didn't think it would last more than a few weeks because I don't tend to stick at things too long.
Now, you just recently wrote a book on blogging for six figures.
Yep.
Tell me, is that realistic? Can somebody make six figures blogging, or is that just, okay, here's your goal, but...
Yeah, I mean, I do, and have been at that kind of level since probably about 2005. But it's certainly not the norm, and I would never promise any blogger that that's what they'll get to by any means. For me, I did happen to be early to it, and I've stuck at it for years and years and years. Been blogging every day pretty much since I started, so it takes a lot of work, and there's no guarantees around that. But there are a lot of bloggers out there who are at least supplementing their income, if not going full-time, and building really good income as well.
Okay. Now, for somebody who is starting out today, if you were starting a blog today, what would you do differently than what you did before?
Well, when I started my first blog, it was a personal blog, and it was about everything. It was literally about church and faith and some of those sorts of issues. It was about the movies I was watching. It was about getting newly married. It was about all kinds of stuff that was an extension of my life in some ways, a public diary. And whilst that was good in that I learned the medium and I learned how to blog, it certainly wasn't until I focused in on a particular niche that it began to grow and become something that could become an income for me. So for me, it was choosing a photography as a topic and really focusing in on that, reviewing cameras. That was the niche that I focused in on. So that's probably one of the things that I wish I'd done faster. However, it was kind of good to have that experience of a personal blog first because I learned a lot through that.
Okay. Now, how did you decide on your niche? I mean, there are so many niches out there. How did you decide on that, and how did you find your audience when you did decide on it?
Yeah, so, I mean, deciding it really came down to passion and something that I was interested in. At the time, I was looking to buy my first digital camera, and so I was wanting to collate reviews of cameras so that I could work out which camera to buy. And yeah, it was really the blog I wanted to read, I guess, back then. And that's been the same for Pro Blogger. That was the blog that I wanted to read because I was looking to make money from blogging, and no one else was writing about it at that point. In terms of finding readers for your blog, it really comes down to thinking about who you want to reach, what type of person you want to reach, and trying to position yourself where they are. So in my photography blog, really I want to reach people who own digital cameras or who have a passion for photography. So I'm thinking, where do they hang out online? They hang out on photo sharing sites, they hang out and share their photos on Facebook. So they're places that I try and develop a presence online to meet those people.
Okay, and how has social media helped you with, because you're pretty big, you're huge on Twitter and on Google+. So how has that helped you?
Yeah, for me it's partly a reinforcement of the brand, I guess. It's It's a place where I can have those one-on-one interactions that I perhaps couldn't have on the blog, make myself a little bit more accessible to people, but it's also a place where I research ideas that I'm having. So if I'm writing a blog post, I quite often will be tweeting, hey, I'm writing about this, what do you think? Or do you have any examples of this? Or here's an idea, what do you think about how I'm testing stuff? And for me, that's probably the most useful thing about social media. And then I'm trying to share content that I'm reading as well. Not only the stuff that I'm writing, I'm trying to share the good stuff in my particular areas of focus. And that I guess is useful to my readers and helps to build the brand as well.
Okay. And somebody who was starting out today, where would you recommend that they start?
I think once you get past that choosing of your particular area that you want to write about, I think then it comes down to identifying the problems that potential readers would have. So you want to put yourself in the shoes of your reader and ask yourself, what do they need? What problems do they have? How can I enhance their life in some way? And that will give you a whole list of things that you can then write about. Unless you're writing content that's solving the needs and enhancing people's lives, why would they read it? So that's probably the cornerstone, I think, of any good blog. It's got to be something that helps people in some way. And so then you need to just start writing that content. You need to start interacting in those places where your readers are gathering and sharing that content in there and being useful in that space. And slowly over time, it grows.
Okay. And where would people find you?
Find me? Problogger.net is the main blog that I have about blogging. It's a blog that I started, I think, in 2006, I think it was, and it's really a blog tips blog. It's a little bit sad in some ways to have a blog about blogging, but that's probably the place that you can find me best.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for talking to us, Darren.
No problem.